Welcome back, listeners. Today we have two more stories from Armenia, collected by A.G. Seklemian. The first is about a boy who has a dream and is chased away when he will not tell it. It reminds me a bit of the gingerbread man because he is telling people that he won't tell them, which is kind of odd. Then he solves some puzzles and falls in love with the princess. With the help of some friends that remind me of the Chinese tale of the seven brothers, he is able to overcome most everything. But what was that dream about? The second story is about a daughter who is married off to a strange partridge who treats her well. Her sisters are jealous and cause problems, which can only be solved with some very rare items. Content note: there is a little bit of talk about blood and the mention of the first breast milk of a woman. These are both natural things, so I left them in the story. I hope you enjoyed the stories. Okay, let's begin. Story number 1. The Dreamer. A father and a mother once lived, whose son was a dreamer. One morning the lad arose and said to his mother, "Mother, I dreamed a dream last night, but I will not tell it." "Why will you not tell it?" asked the mother. "I will not," answered the lad. The mother beat the lad, who ran to his father, saying, "Father, I have dreamed a dream last night. I did not tell it to mother, and I will not tell it to you." The father also beat the lad, who was angered and ran away from the house. After a day's journey, he met a traveler. "Good day," said the lad. "Good day," replied the traveler. "I dreamed a dream," said the lad. "I did not tell it to my mother, I did not tell it to my father, and I will not tell it to you." The lad went on until he came to the prince's palace. The prince was sitting at the door. The lad said, "Prince, I dreamed a dream. I did not tell it to my mother, I did not tell it to my father, I did not tell it to the traveler, and I will not tell it to you." The prince was angry and cast the lad into a prison in the cellar of his palace. The lad dug through the wall of his prison with his dagger and opened a hole into the adjacent room, which happened to be the dining room of the prince's daughter. The lad, finding the maiden's food in the cupboard, ate it all and withdrew to his prison. Soon the maiden came in, and lo, the food was eaten. This was repeated on several days. The maiden was very anxious to know who it was who ate her food, and one day, hiding herself in her wardrobe, she began to watch. Soon she saw the lad, who, lifting a great stone, opened a hole in the wall, crept into her room, took the food from the cupboard, and began to help himself. She jumped out, and taking hold of the lad, said, "Who are you, young man?" "I dreamed a dream," said the lad. "I did not tell it to my mother, I did not tell it to my father, I did not tell it to the traveler, I did not tell it to the prince. The prince cast me into prison, and I dug a hole with my dagger and came here. I am at your mercy." The maiden fell in love with the lad, and thereafter cherished him, not only with her food but with her love, and they accepted one another as husband and wife. One day the king of the east sent messengers to the prince, bearing a stick which had both ends equal, saying, "Now tell me, which is the bottom and which is the top of this stick? If you solve this, well and good. If not, you must give me your daughter in marriage to my son." The prince called all his wise men into council, but no one could solve the riddle. The princess told it to the lad. The lad said, "Go and tell your father to tell them to cast the stick into the pond. The bottom end will sink the deeper in the water." They did so, and the riddle was solved. On the following day, the king of the east sent 3 horses, all being exactly the same size and having the same appearance, saying, "Which is the 1-year-old colt? Which is the 2-year-old colt? And which is the mother? If you solve this, well and good. If not, you must give your daughter in marriage to my son." All the learned men of the prince could not solve this riddle. The princess in the evening said to the lad, "No one could solve the riddle, and they will take me away tomorrow." "Tell your father," said the lad, "to let them keep the horses in the stable overnight. In the morning, let them take a bundle of hay, wet and salt it, and cast it before the horses outside the stable door. The mother will come out first, the 2-year-old colt after her, and the 1-year-old colt last." They did as the lad advised, and the riddle was solved. On the following day, the king of the East sent to the prince a steel shield and a steel spear, saying, "If you can pierce this shield with this spear with one stroke, I will give you my daughter to your son in marriage. If you cannot pierce it, you must give me your daughter to my son in marriage." The prince and all his men tried, and could not pierce the shield. The prince then said to his daughter, "Go, send your man. Let us see if he can pierce it." The lad came, and at one stroke pierced the steel shield with the steel spear. Now the prince had no son. He therefore adopted the lad, who was already his son-in-law, and made him heir apparent to his throne. Thereupon the lad set out to go and bring the daughter of the king of the East. After a long journey he met a man who was kneeling down with his ear close to the ground. "What man are you?" asked the lad. "I lay my ear to the ground," answered the man, "and listen to whatever men say all over the world." "Aha, what a man!" exclaimed the lad. "He can hear what is said all over the world." "Man?" said the listener. "A man is he who pierced the steel shield with the steel spear." "It was I," said the lad. "Then I am your brother," said the listener, and followed the lad. After a long journey they met a man who was standing with one of his feet upon Mount Ararat and the other upon Mount Taurus. "Aha, what a man!" exclaimed the lad. "He strides over the world." "Man!" exclaimed the colossal strider. "A man is he who pierced the steel shield with the steel spear." "It was I," said the lad. "Then I am your brother," said the colossus, and followed the lad. After a long journey they met a man who was eating all the loaves baked in 7 ovens, and still crying, "I am hungry, I am famishing, for heaven's sake give me something to eat." "Aha," said the lad, "what a man, whom 7 ovens continually baking cannot satisfy." "Man?" exclaimed the glutton. "A man is he who pierced the steel shield with the steel spear." "I am the man," said the lad. "Then I am your brother," said the glutton, and followed the lad. Soon they met a man who was carrying the earth upon his shoulders. "What a man!" exclaimed the lad. "Man?" replied the carrier of the earth. "A man is he who pierced the steel shield with the steel spear." "I am the man," said the lad. "Then I am your brother," said the carrier of the earth, and he also followed the lad. They soon met a man who was laying flat on the bank of the Euphrates, and drinking the river dry, but still crying, "I am thirsty, I am dry, more water for heaven's sake." "Aha, what a man!" exclaimed the lad. "The river Euphrates does not satisfy his thirst." "Man?" exclaimed the river drinker. "A man is he who pierced the steel shield." "I am he," said the lad. "Then I am your brother," said the river drinker, and followed the lad. They soon met a shepherd who was blowing his horn, and lo, hills and valleys, plains and forests, men and beasts were dancing. "Aha, what a man!" exclaimed the lad. "All the world is dancing to his music." "Man," returned the shepherd, "a man is he who pierced the steel shield." "I am he," said the lad. "Then I am your brother," said the shepherd, and he followed the lad. Now they were 7. "Brother Steel Shield Steel Spear," said the 6 adopted brothers to the lad, "where shall we go now?" "We shall go and bring the daughter of the king of the East," answered the lad. "You are worthy of her," said his 6 companions. Soon they arrived at the city of the king of the East, who, seeing them, said to his servants secretly, "These 7 fellows have come to take away my daughter, heaven forbid! They are bashful lads and will hardly eat a bowlful of soup. Now go and bake 21 ovens full of bread, and make 21 cauldrons full of soup, and put it all before them. If they can eat it all in one sitting, I will give them my daughter. If not, I will not." The lad and his crew were entertained in an apartment some distance from the king's apartment, where he was giving these instructions to his men. The ground listener, hearing the king's orders, said to the lads, "Brother, steel shield, steel spear. Did you hear what the king said to his men?" "No, blockhead," said the lad. "How can I hear him while he is in another apartment far from us?" The ground listeners said, "They are going to serve us 21 horseloads of bread and 21 cauldrons full of soup, and in case we fail to eat it all in one meal, they will refuse to give us the princess." "Be of good cheer," said the ravenous eater. "I take the responsibility upon myself." On the following day, all the bread and soup was served to one man, and there was not enough to gratify him. He was still crying, "I am hungry, I am famishing, give me something to eat." "A plague upon these fellows," said the king to his peers. "We could not satisfy one. What if all the 7 should eat? Now I tell you what to do. Entertain them in another house. Bring quantities of wood and rushes at night and pile them around the building. And in the middle of the night, when they are asleep, set fire to the piles. Thus they will perish, and we shall be rid of them." The ground listener heard everything, told it to the lad. "Never mind," said the river drinker. "I can keep in my stomach enough water to extinguish their fire." He went and drank the neighboring river dry and came back, and all went to bed. At midnight they saw that the house was on fire. The river drinker blew out the flames, and lo, a stream of water began to flow from his mouth. It not only extinguished the flames, but drowned all those who were making the fire. That caused the king to be still more angry, and he said to his peers, "Let come what may, I will not give up my daughter." "Now it is my turn," said the earth carrier. "If he does not give us his daughter, I will carry away his whole kingdom." He had hardly finished his words when he put his shoulder under the ground of the king of the east, and lo, he took on his back the whole realm. Then the shepherd began to blow his horn, and the mountains and valleys, plains and forests, and all living creatures in them began to dance. The strider of the world walked before them, opening the way, and so the procession went on with great merriment. Thereupon the king began to weep and to beg them, saying, "For heaven's sake, leave my kingdom. Take my daughter and go." Then the earth carrier set the kingdom down in its place again. The shepherd ceased blowing his horn, and the universe stopped dancing. The lad thanked his 6 brothers for their valuable services, and sent them to their homes. And he himself took the maiden and came to the prince's city, where a wedding festival was celebrated for 40 days. And he married this maiden also. He sat down with the baby born during his absence in his arms, and his 2 wives, one on each side, and calling for his father and mother to him, said, "Now shall I tell you what my dream was?" "Yes, what was it?" said his parents. "I dreamed in my dream," said the lad, "that there was one sun upon my right side, another sun upon my left side, and a bright star was twinkling upon my heart." "Was that your dream?" said they. "Yes, that was my dream," said he. "This tale was a dream. The sender of dreams has sent 3 apples from above. One for him who told the story, one for him who asked that the story be told, and one for him who listened to the story." The end. Okay, and story number 2. The Bride of the Fountain. Somewhere I have heard that there were once 3 sisters, whose mother went to town to buy them dresses. On her way back to the village, she sat down by a fountain to rest. "Tush!" exclaimed she, remembering that she had forgotten to buy a dress for her youngest daughter. Suddenly an old man came out from the fountain, and standing before the woman said, "My name is Tush. Why did you call me?" "I did not call you," said the woman. "I exclaimed tush because I had forgotten to buy a dress for my youngest daughter." "Go, bring her," said the old man, "and call on me again. I will give her a dress." The woman went and brought her daughter to the fountain. As soon as she uttered the word tush, the old man came out. He took the maiden into the fountain and never came back, in spite of the repeated exclamations of the woman, who, tired of repeating tush, tush, at last gave up hope, and going home mourned the wonderful disappearance of her pretty daughter. After 1 or 2 months she went again to the fountain and uttered the word tush. The old man came out, and seeing the woman, he turned toward the fountain, saying, "Hello, son. Your mother-in-law has come to call on her daughter. Won't you send her out?" "Certainly," said a voice from within. "I will send her to pay a visit to her mother, as is the custom." In a few minutes the anxious mother saw her daughter come out from the fountain dressed as a beautiful bride, and she took her home. "Mamma," said the bride, "give me a separate room. My husband told me that he will come to me every night." The mother gave her a separate room. The bridegroom visited her every night in the shape of a partridge. He used to come after nightfall, and flapping his wings, perch on the window ledge. She opened the window and took him in. Every morning the partridge flew away before dawn. Her 2 sisters, envious of the happiness of their youngest sister, brought razors and nailed them around the window. At nightfall the partridge came flying, and when he was perched on the window, he struck his wings against the razors, which wounded his body in several places. He was hardly able to fly back to his fountain, and there he was confined to his bed. He vowed to be revenged upon his bride, who he thought had put the razors on the window. The bride, seeing that the partridge did not come for 5 or 6 days, went with her mother to the fountain. "Tush!" they called, and lo, the old man came out, and turning to the fountain exclaimed, "Son, your bride and her mother-in-law have come." "Oh, oh!" cried the partridge from within. "I do not want such a bride. I beseech you, put on your eagle's suit and take her to the 7th heaven, and thence cast her to the torrid desert." Father Tush at once changed himself into an eagle, and carried the bride away and cast her to the sandy desert. There she fell upon the sand, but did not die. "Oh, heaven!" exclaimed the maiden. "What have I done to deserve such treatment?" She wandered all about in the desert without knowing where to go. At nightfall she buried herself in the sand to sleep. Soon there came 2 conjurers who sat down near her. They conjured, and lo, innumerable great serpents gathered around them. They sat in council, inquired of each other, and prepared remedies for 1,001 diseases. For razor cuts they devised this remedy: "Wash the patient with the first milk from the breasts of a woman, and put upon the wounds the dried blood taken from a young woman's veins. On the 3rd application the patient will be healed." The maiden, who was listening to them attentively, kept that remedy in mind, and on the following morning started for her husband's fountain. After a long journey she came to her own country, begged from the village women a mother's first milk, and opening one of her own veins got some blood which she dried in the sun. She then went to a fountain disguised as a lad. "Tush!" she exclaimed, and the old man came out. "What do you want?" said he. "I am a doctor," she said. "I had forgotten to get some of my medicines in the village, therefore I said tush." The old man went in and informed his son that there was a human doctor on the fountain. "Bring him in," said the lad. "Let us see if he can administer some remedy to my wounds." The maiden went in, and after examination said, "I can heal you within 3 days." She washed him with the milk, and put the dried blood on the wounds, and on the 3rd day the lad was healed. "What do you want me to pay you?" said the lad. "I do not want anything," said the maiden. "I wish you only to remember my name." "What is it?" asked the lad. "Incense Tree is my name," answered the maiden. "Ah!" exclaimed the lad, "that is my wife's name." "I am your wife," said she, throwing away her masculine attire. She fell on his neck sobbing, and told him how without a fault she was. They loved each other thereafter, and are still living in that deep fountain. 3 apples fell from heaven. one for me, one for the storyteller, and one for him who entertained the company. The end. In the first story, I liked the Super Friends and how he solves the problems. I was a bit surprised with the I'm already married and going off for a second wife, but I mean, the times, yeah. And in the second story, I could see the trouble with the jealous sisters a mile away, but I was a little bit caught off guard on my first reading by the talk of a woman's first breast milk. I know some people will be put off by it, but again, it is natural, and most of us have had it, and it's part of the story, so I left it in. I liked how the magic man's name was Tush, which I can't say without doing kind of a Yiddish accent. Tush, tush, like tuchus. It's just where my brain goes. It's probably just an exclamation in Armenian, but it's, also your bum. Tush. The podcast shoutout goes to Oklahomicide Podcast, Slayings in the Sooner State. As you know, I'm not a huge fan of crime, and I don't like to listen to it often, but I find the way that Dr. Stacy and her husband Zach cover these cases to be very professional. They have interviews, reports, and support for the victims. They also help in cold cases and try and get attention paid to cases that might have gone cold or not get the attention that they need. They're also big supporters of indie podcasts like my own and have shown a lot of love over the past year and a half that I've been on Twitter. And if you like their podcast as much as I do, go and give them a 5-star rating on Podchaser or iTunes. And the listener shout out goes to Alberta, Canada. Stuck between BC and Saskatchewan, it is home to Calgary and Edmonton, 2 hockey-heavy places, and the ancestral lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, which is not one tribe, but at least 4 tribes that have come together and who still to this day live in BC, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. Their language is called Siksika, and I was unable to find how to say my sign-off in their language, so I will just say thank you and good night.